FemTech. Donne, salute, tecnologia e parità.
So welcome to this episode dedicated to one of the most transformative frontiers of innovation, FemTech. The term was coined in 2016 by Ida Tin, and we are very delighted to this incredible Danish entrepreneur and co-founder of the app Clue here with us for this podcast to describe technologies designed to improve women's health and well-being. So what started as a simple word has since evolved into a global ecosystem of startups, research, investment focused on closing the long-standing gap in women's health. So today, FemTech goes far beyond reproductive health. It includes solutions for mental health, menopause, prevention, longevity, data-driven medicine, highlighting how investing in women's health is not only a medical priority, but also an economic and social issue. So in this episode, I'm delighted again to speak with the woman who first gave a name to this movement. So welcome, Ida Tin.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So Ida, you are credited with coining the term FemTech. And can you take us back a little bit to the moment in which you just issued this name and tell us what problem you felt urgently needed a name in order to build this movement at that time?
Yeah. So I had been invited to be on a panel for a big tech conference in San Francisco in 2016. Called TechCrunch Disrupt, and they were putting their first panel on FemTech on, and I was looking to see who else were on that panel, and I could see that we were doing sort of neighboring things, but our language was all over the place, and I had found it quite difficult, including myself, to kind of figure out what we should call ourselves, because yes, we were a peer tracking app, but we were a lot more. And I thought if we could give it a name that we could all feel part of, people would understand that we were a big thing that was happening in tech, also for ourselves. And I thought it would be helpful to have a word that would be really easy to say, whether you were a woman or a man. So it also had this very sort of practical idea that I wanted people to be able to talk about this new sector. And for myself, what I really wanted to try and solve was family planning methods. I had tried different types of birth control myself, and I didn't think the solutions were really great. And this was around 2008, so the first iPhone was just coming out, and I thought, what if we could just take out our phone and it would tell us, today you can now get pregnant. You don't have to worry about it, or yeah, today you can get pregnant, please take care. And I thought, if we could do that, that would be really helpful. So that was my own sort of entry door into this really big space of women's health.
So again, awesome intuition, so I got it. And when FemTech first emerged, from that point, women's health was often treated as a nice rather than a global economic and social priority. So what resistance or misunderstanding did you encounter in those early years, and how did you push through it?
Yes, it's true. I think in the beginning, people thought that it was a niche type of area, which, I always thought was a bit funny, because I don't think you can think of anything more kind of affecting every single human on the planet, which is coming out of a woman's body, since we all do. And of course, without periods, there would be no pregnancy. So that didn't make sense in my mind. And I think there's been a big shift where people are starting to understand that women's health is relevant not only to women, but actually to all of society, because women's health in many ways really is the infrastructure that allows women's life energy to run into society. And also, I think there's been this shift where we can see that women's health is something that public health institutions spend a lot of money on. But actually, there is a lot of money to be saved in these areas, because a lot of the treatments are not actually fitting women's body very well, and we diagnose very late, etc. So there's a lot of money to be saved around women's health. And at the same time, there's also a lot of money to be made, because women want to feel well, and right now we are not getting the care we need. So we look around and see what technologies or services we can use to actually feel better. So I think it's starting to become clear that it is very far from a niche. It is in fact a huge, massive, and very kind of societally relevant industry.
So, looking back at the origins of FemTech and forward to its future, what do you believe is the core value that must never be lost as the sector scales and attracts investment and becomes more mainstream, as we have experienced also last year in Vivatech Festival in France, in Paris?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it's extremely important that we always remember to keep the user or the patient at the center. This is the whole reason why we do this. It's good to make money because that's an engine that keeps things going, but it has to be truly done with care. We have to actually care about the people we are serving. And I think there's one very good sort of way to make sure that that happens, which is to build this technology by very diverse teams. I think it's important that we have women being part of the teams, but also men. I think we need both men and women to care about women's health for it to really go through the transformation in the future that we still needed to go through.
Yeah, in fact, that's why we address our project both to women and men, hearing their voices and sharing the same commitment and values to change things on women health. And before we close this conversation, I think that one message clearly emerged, and FemTech is not simply a sector, but it's a shift of perspective and a common sharing of values. So for too long, women's health has been under-researched, underfunded, and often misunderstood. So, but innovation is helping us, and thanks to Ida team, to rewrite the story, bringing data, technology, and new voices into a space that directly affects half the world population. So Ida team reminding us today, I think naming something can be the first step toward changing things for everybody. And FemTech has become more than a word. It's now a global movement connecting entrepreneurs, researchers, investors, policymakers around the world and sharing the same goal, making women's health visible, investigated, investable, and central to the future of innovation. At Global Thinking Foundation and Womenomics, we strongly believe that advancing women's health through technology is not only a matter of healthcare, but also of equality, economic empowerment, and social well-being. So a very warm thank you to Ida Tin for joining us and for inspiring us with this global conversation. And thank you to all of you of listening. Until the next episode, let's continue working toward a future where innovation truly serves everyone, health and well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you.